إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. دعاء التوسل. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها القاضم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا وصي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله عند الله يا وجيها عند الله. Hajat. Let's remember all others before we remember ourselves, those who are in need of our du'as, especially in these holy nights. May Allah accept and relieve them from any difficulties that they have. يا سادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله ولعن الله الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين. اللهم صل على فاتحة.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله.
Mu'mineen, once more just to remind, especially those who are new and who have come for the first time, we are praying in a triangular fashion because of the COVID restrictions, which means the blue marks where you the blue marks that you see marked on the carpets, that's where you put your heels, and you put your turba where the turba mark is. Very important, those markings are very important to make sure that the lines are connected properly and that we can have a jama'ah, all right? So please do adhere to those. On the extreme left and the extreme right, there are red lines. If you are standing there, you are not part of the jama'ah. Neither are the ladies part of the jama'ah. Unfortunately, we cannot get the connection this way. So what that means is that when you are reciting the namaz, you'll join us together with us all, but you will make the niyyah of furada. And what that means on a practical basis is that when the surahs are being recited, those in jama'ah do not recite the surahs, you will have to recite the surahs, those that are doing furada. Okay, the ladies as well as those on the extreme right, extreme left, you will recite the surahs. The rest of the dhikr, adhkar, ruku, sujood, everything else we do together with the imam, never ahead. Okay, so please do that and adhere to whatever instructions the volunteers give you. Follow that to make it easy for everybody, inshallah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليك أشهد أن عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليك حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله يا محسن قد أتاك المسيح أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه صلاة المغرب الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد ربي صلي على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. حول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. بصل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته في أمته وارفع درجته. بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله أكبر. سبحان الله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا خير المسؤولين ويا خير المعطين ارزقني وارزق أيالي من فضلك فإنك ذو الفضل العظيم. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك، لا إله إلا أنت. أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليك. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليك. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. صلاة العشاء. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر. تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. حول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربي أدخلني مدخل صدق وأخرجني مخرج صدق واجعل لي من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته في أمته وارفع درجته. حول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdi Rabbi salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Sami Allahu liman hamida. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdi Rabbi salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahu Akbar. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdih. Rabbi salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahu Akbar. Hawlillahi wa quwwatihi aqumu wa akbar. Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdi Rabbi salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdi Rabbi salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahu Akbar. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdi Rabbi salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ar-rahata 'inda al-maut wal maghfirata ba'da al-maut wal rahata fil qabr wal 'afwa 'inda al-hisab. Rabbi salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabiyyu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi as-salihin. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahumma salli ala wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Wa ajil.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي وإنما أطلبه بخطرات تخطر على قلبي فأجول في طلبه البلدان فأنا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران لا أدري أفي في سهل هو أم في جبل أم في أرض أم في سماء أم في بر أم في بحر وعلى يدي من ومن قبل من وقد علمت أن علمه عندك وأسبابه بيدك وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم فصل على محمد وآله واجعل يا ربي رزقك لي واسعا ومطلبه سهلا ومأخذه قريبا ولا تعنني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا فإنك غني عن عذابي وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. فصل على محمد وآله وجد على عبدك بفضلك إنك ذو فضل عظيم. مع توجه زيارة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى أم المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا حسين الشهيد بكربلاء، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليكم أئمة الهدى علي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي باقر علم النبيين وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا ومحمد بن علي الجواد وعلي بن محمد الهادي والحسن بن علي الزكي العسكري. السلام عليك يا قائم آل محمد يا صاحب العصر والزمان سيدي الأمان الأمان من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا مظهر الإيمان يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجا وسحل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. अकबर तुम्हें मालूम है क्या मांग रहे हो तुम बाप से मरने की रिदा मांग रहे हो अकबर तुम्हें मालूम है क्या मांग रहे हो तुम बाप से मरने की रिदा मांग रहे हो इस आलम गुर्बत में तुम्हें जाने दूं कैसे इस दश्त मुसीबत में तुम्हें जाने दूं कैसे इस वक्त क़यामत में तुम्हें जाने दूं कैसे ऐ लाल जो तुम इज़्न विगा मांग रहे हो तुम बाप से मरने की रिदा मांग रहे हो क्या गुज़रेगी इस बाप के दिल पर नहीं सोचा तुमने मेरी जान अली अकबर सोचा مر جاؤں گا میں تجھ سے بچھڑ کر نہیں سوچا تم مجھ سے ضعیفی کا عصا مانگ رہے ہو تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو دل روتا ہے نظروں سے اگر دور ہو بیٹا کس طرح جدائی تیری منظور ہو بیٹا تم ہی میرے آنکھیں ہو میرے نور ہو بیٹا مجھ سے میری آنکھوں کا ضیاء مانگ رہے ہو تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو دنیا سے گیا جس گھڑی محبوب خدا کا نانا کی زیارت کو تڑپ تھا نواسا اے لال تجھے اس لیے خالق سے تھا مانگا مقبول ہوئی میری دعا مانگ رہے ہو تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو اسلام پہ خود اپنا لہو رن میں بہاؤ سینے پہ سنا شان سے میدان میں کھاؤ تصویر پیمبر کی تہے خاک ملاؤ کیا اس لیے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو سر تیرا بھی جس وقت چڑھے گا سر نیزہ ہوگا سر میدان جدا سر بھی تمہارا ہم شکل پیمبر کا گلا کاٹیں گے آدھا گویا میرے نانا کا گلا مانگ رہے ہو تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو اس عالم غربت میں تمہیں جانے دوں کیسے اس دشت مصیبت میں تمہیں جانے دوں کیسے اس وقت قیامت میں تمہیں جانے دوں کیسے اے لال جو تم اذن وغا مانگ رہے ہو تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو اکبر تمہیں معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہے ہو تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو صلو علی محمد و آل محمد
محمد و آل محمد صلوات بارے دیگر نعرہ صلوات مڑ مڑ کے مجھے دیکھتے جانا علی اکبر مڑ مڑ کے مجھے دیکھتے جانا علی اکبر
کچھ دیر تو جی لے تیرا، کچھ دیر تو جی لے تیرا بابا علی اکبر، مڑ مڑ کے مجھے دیکھتے جانا علی اکبر، تم زی سے گرو گے تو بدل جائے گی دنیا، مقتل کی طرف کون ہمیں لے کے چلے گا، قاتل تو بتائیں گے نا، قاتل تو بتائیں گے نا رستہ علی اکبر، مڑ مڑ کے مجھے دیکھتے جانا علی اکبر، بیمار مدینہ کی خبر آتی ہی ہوگی، تم ساتھ لیے جاتے ہو بینائی بھی میری، میں کیسے پڑھوں گا خطیں، میں کیسے پڑھوں گا خطیں صغرا علی اصغر علی اکبر، مڑ مڑ کے مجھے دیکھتے جانا علی اکبر، احساس تڑپنے کا ہمارا تجھے ہوتا، میری طرح تو اپنے کلیجے جگر تھام کے روتا، تیرا بھی جو ہوتا کوئی، تیرا بھی جو ہوتا کوئی بیٹا علی اکبر، مڑ مڑ کے مجھے دیکھتے جانا علی اکبر، ہو جائے گا مشکل میرا آنا میرے بیٹا، مقتل میں کہیں دور نہ جانا میرے بیٹا، اب مجھ سے چلا بھی نہیں، اب مجھ سے چلا بھی نہیں جاتا علی اکبر، مڑ مڑ کے مجھے دیکھتے جانا علی اکبر، نانا میرے پوچھے جو کہاں دیر لگائی، کہہ دینا اجازت بڑی مشکل سے ہے پائی، لگ جاؤ گلے آ کے، لگ جاؤ گلے آ کے دوبارہ علی اکبر، مڑ مڑ کے مجھے دیکھتے جانا علی اکبر، نانا گئے جب آئی تھی اماں پہ ضعیفی، تم جاتے ہو حالات ہے عجب بنت علی کی، زینب ہوئی جاتی ہے، زینب ہوئی جاتی ہے ضعیفہ علی اکبر، مڑ مڑ کے مجھے دیکھتے جانا علی اکبر، کچھ دیر تو جی لے ذرا،
कुछ देर तो जी ले तेरा बाबा अली अकबर, मुड़ मुड़ के मुझे देखते जाना अली अकबर। बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. We are pleased to welcome our members back at our centers to commemorate Muharram this year. The office staffs and volunteers have worked hard to take all the precautions for our members to stay safe. We look forward to seeing you all at our centers.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As part of ISIJ initiative, Jaffrey Facility Management Committee is looking after the maintenance and ensuring that the facilities is well taken care of.
As a part of the IAQ team of JFMC, we are pleased to report that all three ISIJ centers around GTA have taken multiple proactive measures to maintain safe and high indoor air quality during gatherings.
The rooftop units are equipped with economizers which allow plenty of fresh air to come in. This way all our members are protected from viruses or all type of bacteria.
These measures include use of medical grade air purification units with HEPA filters and UV lights to help capture and kill any airborne pathogens. We have also installed duct mounted UV lights at Zainabia Hall and Masjid HVAC units, and we have provided all three centers with handheld indoor air quality monitors. We put the effectiveness of these measures to test at a recent high capacity event at JCC, and we are delighted to report that all parameters of indoor air quality measured at full capacity were well within excellent range. We hope this helps reassure the community that the air quality at our centers are safe and are being maintained with very high indoor air quality.
At the same time, we want to make sure that all the children, the family who come here, they come in a safe environment.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. الله. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بالحسين عليه السلام. Respected Maulana Sayyid Asad Jaffrey, my respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. On this blessed night of the 9th of Muharram, we pay our tribute to Hazrat Ali al-Akbar, son of Aba Abdullah, who sacrificed his life in the way of Islam. In honor of him, let us please recite a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, let us begin with dua shifa. Let us begin by praying for all those around the world who are sick, in distress, and in need for du'as, especially for the people of Afghanistan and the people of Haiti. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Our nightly programs continue into tomorrow, Ashura night, beginning exactly at 8:33 p.m. with Maghribain Salat, followed by the rest of the program. Similarly, continuing into tomorrow, ladies' daytime majlis will once again begin exactly at 2:30 p.m. Here's the schedule for Ashura Day. Inshallah, the programs will begin with the ladies' morning majlis beginning exactly at 9 a.m. Once again, the programs begin with the ladies' morning majlis at 9 a.m. recited by Zakira Taira by Qasim Ali. Thereafter, inshallah, the a'mal of the day of Ashura will begin at exactly 10:45 a.m., led by Brother Haider Jaffer, followed by the main program starting with Dhuhr Salat, and then Masa'ib, led by Brother Haider Jaffer, and the rest of the program. Then the ladies' Sham-e Ghariba Majlis will begin exactly at 6 p.m. with Majlis by Zakirat Darabai Qasim Ali. And then the main Sham-e Ghariba program beginning at 8 p.m. with Dua Kumail, followed by the main program after Maghribain Salat and Masa'ib by Sayyid Asad Jafri. For those gents who have registered outdoors for Ashura Day, we urge you to please bring your musalla with you, as inshallah we'll be laying out tarps for the program underneath the tents during the Amal of Ashura. For those that cannot attend any one of our 3 centers for the Ashura Day program, you may register for picking up your niyaz and pay your respects to the alam of Hazrat Abbas and the Taboot at the Jafri Community Center. Once again, this is taking place at the Jafri Community Center. Please register at jafri.org/Ashura JCC Niyaz. Once again, it's jafri.org/Ashura JCC Niyaz. The deadline to register is tomorrow, Wednesday, August 18th at 11:59 p.m. As we have been doing over the last couple of days, congregants on both the gents and ladies side will have the opportunity to pay their respects to the alam and taboot from a distance. On the gents side, it will be on the gym, and on the ladies side, it will be both in the main hall and in the gym. Please follow the instructions of the usherers on both the gents and ladies side, who will guide you once you have paid your respects, and please return to your spot either in the hall or in the gym once you are done. As mentioned by our treasurer last night, we are asking for your generous donations towards our Muharram fund. Donations can be made on both the gents and ladies side. You can also go online at jafri.org/donate, and you can contribute towards the Muharram fund, or you can donate directly through our ISIJ app. We appreciate your assistance in helping us reach our goal. Tonight's majlis has been sponsored for the Isal Sawab of the following marhumin, whose names are currently being displayed on the TV screens. Please recite Surah Fatiha for them, as well as for all the marhumin whose names are being displayed on the TV screens, and for the marhumin of Kul Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, Muslimin and Muslimat, Al-Fatiha. Bismillah. Inshallah, these conclude tonight's announcements. Let us welcome Sayyid Asad Jafri to the member with 3 loud salawats. Allah.
You know, when you have a guest that doesn't leave after a while, and he leaves after breaking all your furniture, I feel like I've broken your mics over and over again this whole 7. The thing is, the mic is used to nice voices like Haider Bahai's and Sheikh Jaffar's, not this booming, annoying voice like mine. So, khair. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتحدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله وأعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا وإن الله لمع المحسنين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلاة الله محمد وعلى محمد. Cultivating an Islamic identity has been our ongoing topic. Tonight is lecture number 9. We have thus far discussed several topics and several dimensions of this massive topic. Last night we looked at the concept of a fear of rejection, and that closed out our mini topic within this massive topic of the 3 barriers that sometimes are there in front of us when we're simply trying to now identify with Islam. And the 3 barriers that we had discussed, and they're very, very important, is this internalized Islamophobia, which of course results in this inferiority complex, a lack of certainty on the path of Islam, and a fear of rejection by those around us. When all 3 are there, that impedes our progress towards identifying as a Muslim, as a believer in God, as a submitter to God, essentially. And so today and tomorrow, I want to look at a couple of different concepts leading up to the day of Ashura. My last speech, of course, is on Friday. But before that, we do have 3 conversations. The day of Ashura is only Masa'ib. And they are 3 crucial ones. And I brought all of these discussions, and you were very patient with me, you still are, to get to these 2 discussions, the 8th and the 9th of Muharram. And they're all connected, by the way. And tonight I want to speak a little bit about the need to be distinct. The problem is that sometimes we know that if I do adopt and cultivate this Islamic identity, and I begin to look at the parts, so dress the way Islam has asked me to dress, and by the way, that dressing is both for male and female. I think that we as men need to understand what it means to be a wholesome dresser, whether it's the idea of cut off t-shirts, or whether it's the idea of ripped up pants, or whatever the case may be. Everything that's fashionable nowadays should not be followed. You should understand that, if the Holy Prophet was worried about how he looked before he left his home, we should also stop and look at ourselves to see, am I respecting myself, first of all? Because sometimes I feel like when we talk about libas, then of course it goes towards our sisters, the sleeves, the socks, the whole 9. No, we as men also need to worry about how we look. Anyways. So now what ends up happening is that I adopt, let's say, for example, the ahkam and fiqh when it comes to the clothing of the deen. And in this generation now, in this era now, that becomes, or that makes you to become a little bit distinct. You end up not looking like others. Now, whether that's obvious examples like our sisters covering their hair, for example, or other examples. A lot of time now, trying to instill this idea that it's okay to be distinct inside of our kids is a very difficult task. For reasons that I mentioned, now all these 3 nights I talked about those 3 impediments and 3 barriers, was for this reason. If we can somehow tackle these 3, if we can kind of convert the inferiority complex inside to a superiority complex, not in the sense I look down on others, but I'm confident in my belief. And if I can somehow convert that doubt into yaqeen and convert the fear of rejection to the idea of the fear of acceptance towards God, then I can begin to be okay with being a little bit distinct. Walking downtown and being stared at a couple of times, I have to be okay with that. Now, let's examine this a little bit in a kulli absolute and then filter it down to a couple examples from the Quran, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, please. The first thing I will say is that philosophically, every existence has a need to be known. First statement. That includes you and I. Anything that exists wants to be known by others that it exists. The question sometimes my youth ask, and it's such a beautiful question, is that if you claim, Sayyid, that Allah created us to represent Him on this earth as His khulafa, as His representatives, then why does He need that? And if I answer that He needs to be, He wanted to become ma'loom, there's a hadith qudsi that I was the knower, now I want to become the known. I was the alim, now I want to become ma'loom. I want others, other entities, other realities to know me. The question is, why does He need to be known? And philosophy will say because it is innately built in every existence, including God, to be known, and sometimes we do everyday things to announce our arrival. The Holy Prophet says, لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ طَرِيقٍ. Every shay, everything has its own path. Whole discussion on the first verse of Surah Jum'ah, when Allah says very beautifully, يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. What does that mean? The tasbih of Allah in the heavens and on the earth, everything does, everything does tasbih. Now you and I do tasbih, we do Allahu Akbar 34 times, 33 times, that's tasbih. That makes sense. The trees, the walls, the mountains, the fly, the sun, the moon, the stars, what is their tasbih? Now there's a lot of bahas in tafsir. Allama Tabatabai in his Al-Mizan talks about the idea that anything and everything that exists on its path and carries out the reason by which it was created is doing the tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as the sun rises every single morning, because that's what the sun does, the rising of the sun is the sun's tasbih. When the moon now takes the light, the diya, the light from the sun and illuminates the dark sky at night, that process is its tasbih. Flowers bloom, the clouds rain, the grass grows. All these things are its own respective tasbih. And by doing so, it announces its existence. The wind howls. When the wind howls, it's saying, look, I'm here. When water drops from the sky, when the rain hits and that noise and the wetness, the grass is wet, my car is wet, there's puddles on the ground, that's all the rain showing us that, look, I'm also here. The growing of the grass, the blades get high, you have to cut the grass, that, of course, calling I'm here. The smell when you walk in a 24 bouquet of red roses, that smell is the rose now announcing, I'm here. Every existence announces that I'm here. It wants to be known. We also, through various means, walking in, for example, greeting each other, texting each other, you name it, for example, speaking, all these things are me announcing that, hello, I'm here, I'm known. That's why when others don't reciprocate that to us, we feel empty inside. I mentioned this several times, right? One of the worst things that we could ever feel is invisible. This need for acknowledgement inside of us actually comes from the need to be known. Follow me, please. I'm taking you somewhere. When someone doesn't acknowledge us, we are insulted. If we have the himmat, we say, look, what's wrong? You don't even greet me anymore. You don't come. You came, you said salam to everybody, you just walk right by me. It pinches sometimes. Now, if you bring it up, he might say, oh, I'm sorry, I was in a hurry. But if you let it fester, you think, oh, this guy doesn't even talk to me now, blah, blah, blah. All that based on a lack of acknowledgement. I texted you, said you never even bothered to reply to my text. I know you're busy, but at least say no, yes, something, thumbs up, thumbs down. Acknowledge my text. That's a deeper, internal, fitri, innate need to be what? Acknowledged. To announce that I'm here. So already we have this need to be distinct. Understand the statement, please. It's a very big statement. There's already an innate need for us to be distinct. Okay? I'll give you the other example again. You're sitting in a circle. Someone comes in that circle, says salam to everybody but you. If you did not see yourself, and please, my young guys, my young sisters in the audience, who you think for a moment that you don't want to be distinct. I don't want to call attention to myself, mama, with this outfit. I don't want to do all of that. Did my mic go again? No. I don't want to do all that. We don't realize that it's already inside of us. You're sitting in a group with 5 people, 6, you're one group. You are a part of one group. Somebody comes and says salam to everybody else in that group but you. That should be sufficient for you. You are the group. He greeted the group. That's enough. But no, you're like, no, I want my own salam. Understand the philosophy. I want my own salam. Yes, I'm in the group. I'm sitting in a circle, but I am distinct in this group. Today's social media content creators, they want to be distinct. The only reason why people will follow them is if they have something new to offer. Oh, I get all the time. I get individuals that I ask about. When they come to me and say, "Oh, do you know this scholar?" I say, "Yes, I know this scholar." Yeah, I attended his lecture series. Oh, okay, how was it? It was good, but it was old material, old content. He repeats himself sometimes. We want fresh content, Malana, fresh topics. Like as if everything you've heard so far, you've acted on that 100%. There's a reason why every single time he comes here, he talks about the same issue, because it's not being acted upon. Oh, I remember my usul fiqh teacher in the Hawza in Qum. He taught me, the book that we follow is Shaykh Baqir al-Sadr's book of halaqat. Anyways, the teacher of mine knew this book to the point where he wouldn't have the book in front of him, but he would tell us at the bottom right, top left, this line, the third line from the top, the middle portion, the third paragraph, and he would not have the book in his hand. Until someone says, Ustad, how do you know this? He said, I've read this book 25 times. We want something fresh, something I've never heard before. Right? We want this idea. And right now, the social media, Instagram world, all these influencers, as long as they're able to create some sort of continuous creative content, that's them now, of course. That's them now making themselves distinct. And distinct nowadays sells. It does. But that was already inside of you and me all from the very moment that we were created inside of our fitrat is a need to be known. A baby comes out of the womb crying. A baby is thirsty, it wails and cries. So the first point I want to make tonight is that those of us who are afraid to be distinct, too late, it's already inside of you. The question is that where do you want to be distinct? In what capacity do you want to stand out in? That's more of a question, not the question that, oh, you know what, I just want to kind of blend with the crowd. No, you don't. You don't, I'm sorry. Yes, it might be an issue of shyness. I don't want to be up there. I don't want to be called out, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Right? Sometimes when I have classes, and I'm asking somebody to recap my class from last week, from yesterday, can someone tell me? I'm looking at one student and then sitting there, no, don't. I know the answer, but I can't speak up in the class. First point is, to my young guys and my young sisters who think for a second they don't want to be distinct, they do. It's already inside of them. It's a matter of managing that need. It's a very, very hassas point. Now, come to Nahj al-Balagha of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Talib alayhi salatu wa salam. Allahumma salli ala. Very famously, Khutbah Hammam, Khutbah 193. Hammam was a companion. Khutbah Muttaqin is another word of it. A revolutionary, life-changing sermon. If any of you want to begin to recite or read Nahj al-Balagha, include this in one of the sermons that you visit right away. 193. Sermon of the Muttaqin. Pages and pages of those that Allah describes as the pious one. Someone like me should just pick one and do his level best to try to get that one line into his whole life. It's a heavy khutbah, to the point where it took the life of Hammam at the end. He couldn't handle it. In there, Hammam approaches Imam Ali and says, please, everywhere I go, I hear muttaqi, muttaqi, muttaqi. Even in the opening idea of the Jummah khutbah, it is mustahab for the alim or the khatib, whoever is giving the khutbah, to say, to remind the people, please choose the path of taqwa. Every single Friday. Who are these muttaqi, he said? Can you describe them to me? Now, Imam Ali, in true Imam fashion, said very simply, look, fear Allah, do good, muttaqi. He says, no, I need more. That's not enough. Don't give me a generic answer. And sometimes the Imam will do that, right? The Imam will sort of kind of test to see how deep do you want me to go. Do good deeds, fear Allah, have belief, that's taqwa. No, Mawla, I want more. And then he begins his khutbah. Line by line, that khutbah is life-changing. The one line that fits in our discussion tonight, he says, فَالْمُتَّقُونَ فِيهَا هُمْ أَهْلُ الْفَضَائِلِ. Inside the pious ones, you'll find those who are the Ahlul Fada'il, the people of distinction, he would say. If the whole world's going one way, they're going to go the other way. Running down a rabbit hole of shaitan. We have to begin to train ourselves. My young guys, and this is very difficult, this topic is not easy, but as I keep pumping you up, if anybody can do it, you can do it. We have to be able to get to the point where if there is a room filled with people, 100 people who are wearing now bright white t-shirts, we have to be okay with the fact that I would walk into that gathering with my hot pink shirt on. Knowing full well, when I walk from the back to the front, every white t-shirt guy will look at my pink shirt, because I'm going to stand out. I'm not going to be a white t-shirt guy. It's very hard. It's easy to wear a white t-shirt, you blend in, nobody, after a while you're one person. But to wear a hot pink or a tie-dye or a bright red shirt now and walk through that is very difficult. Sometimes there are people that will just sit in the back. They don't want that long walk from the back to the front. All eyes will be on me. We have to be okay with that. We have to somehow find it inside of us through the three barriers I talked about to somehow be individuals who are distinct. Now, Islam is such a beautiful, balanced religion. It says, don't be to the point where you are somebody who is extreme. Okay, this libas shu'rat, for example, they talk about. Clothing that actually, makes you somebody who stands out in a negative way. There's got to be a balance. At the same time, we can't be those people who are afraid to take on the Islamic identity in our clothing, for example, if it means for a moment now, somebody at my no-frills might sit there and stare at me. Or they might ask me, why are you wearing that hijab on your head? So to avoid all these confrontations and looks, I'm okay where I am. Literally, there are sisters who won't wear hijab for this very reason. and the mothers and fathers are trying to convince them. It goes back to these three barriers I talked about. Maybe all three, maybe one, maybe something else. But the first sifat and quality of the pious ones, Imam Ali says, they are okay with being distinct. And the word he uses, not isolated, ostracized. He says distinct. Which means that you have to have enough confidence to know inside of you that yes, while I don't look like everybody else, it doesn't make me lower, it doesn't make me inferior. In fact, it makes me, like I said, distinct. Okay? Now, how do we do that? I talked about very briefly last night as a segue to tonight, the idea of ilmun nafs, knowing yourself. When you begin to search inward a little bit, contemplation, a little bit of the break from the numbing devices. There's a lot of numbing devices my youth today face. I never faced those things. The most I faced growing up were video games maybe. Television for sure was a numbing device. That's the extent of it. But these guys have everything. And the thing was that now the numbing device is in their pocket. It's in their cars. It's been made legal in this country. And all these numbing devices are meant to kind of, let's not get them to the point where they begin to kind of search inwards. Let's let them kind of, numb. Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayh in his Adab al-Salat, again a monumental work by the great Imam, that really is again a life changer. In there, I refer to it constantly this Muharram. In the opening lectures, opening durus of this book, he talks about a concept that he refers to as izzati rububiyya, dhillati ubudiyya. That one of the things that we need to train ourselves on to even enter the realm of salat is the izzat, the power, the majesty, the respect of Allah's rububiyyah and the degradation of my subservience. The dhillati ubudiyya. The faster I get there, the faster I make myself zalil and him aziz. The faster I make myself the abd and him the mawla. The faster I make the one who's marzuq and him the raziq, the marhum, the rahim, or whatever the case may be, the more this salat will what? Infiltrate into my soul. Okay? So he spends a good 3 or 4 chapters now talking about this, because one block when it comes to salat is yes, people like me go up and down, ruku, sujud, but this mi'raj mu'min doesn't happen. I've been praying for over 20 years. I don't know how many times I've experienced this mi'raj, this ascension that the hadith talks about. All of you, mashallah, the mu'mineen. So I fulfill the salat, it's there on time, it's a checklist, that's great. But ascension, I don't know about all of you, but these things are tough for me to really measure inside of me, which means that I'm doing something wrong. Yes, I'm going through the motions. The wudu is following the rules. I have 7 spots on my body and during sujood. I do all of that. I do my best. But this spiritual sense is not there. And he explains why. And follow this discussion, please. I talk to myself up here. He says that ultimately we are the musafirin. He uses sair and suluk up and down their book. The suluk is the path, the salik is you and I, the journeyman. Okay, or the musafir, the traveler. He says a journey individual, a musafir, one who's doing safar, let's say for example, they have certain alamat, certain signs. Right? You see a boarding pass, you see a passport, you see a suitcase, right? Maybe some different currency. Okay? You could tell this guy is about to go on a plane. Or he's packing his car, let's say for example, he started his car, for example, he's about to go on a road trip. The car is packed, everything, up and down, blah, blah, blah. There's all these signs he's about to embark on a journey. There's physical signs. He says, imagine now, Imam Khomeini, imagine walking to somebody's house And they're sitting there on their couch, no sign of a suitcase, no boarding pass, no passport, nothing. He's in his home clothes. And he says, yeah, I'm on a journey right now. I'm traveling. He's like, well, where are you traveling right now? How are you traveling right now? You're sitting there in your room, in your home. How could you be traveling? Picking up the signs of a physical journey are easy enough. Imam Khomeini says we're in a spiritual journey constantly. If that physical journey has alamat and signs, the spiritual one does as well. So what are those spiritual ones? He says we have to leave the home of the self. Follow the example. It's a very beautiful discussion he has. He's an arif, he's a faqih, he's a poet, he's a philosopher. You see all of that in his writing. This is that one book. These are not his students writing out his durus. He wrote this book by his own hands in Farsi. He says there are signs that we are spiritually on our journey. Every single one of us are on a spiritual journey. We are on this sayr, this kind of journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are there signs that I am a musafir? Yes, there are signs. What are those signs? He says you have to leave your home to be able to travel physically, right? Same idea. He says you have to leave the home of the self internally to be able to travel towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he gives a very beautiful example, comparing some fiqhi rulings to what I'm talking about. Back in the day, in order for you to be considered to be a musafir, for you now to have your salat to be qasr, and for you not to fast, there were certain signs. Nowadays we have a calculation of miles and kilometers. Back then they had other signs. Okay? One sign was that you would leave your town or city to the point where you couldn't see the walls of the buildings of your town. If you could no longer see the walls of the building of your town, you were far enough, let's say, to be considered to be a musafir. You're no longer muqim in that village. Okay? What else? When you can no longer hear the adhan from the masjid inside of your town, you are now considered to be far enough to be a musafir. Okay? He uses these two fiqhi examples to make his point. He says the same way that a physical musafir has to now be invisible towards the walls of the town and be deaf towards the adhan of the salat, is the same way the spiritual sense has to be invisible to the walls of his own praise and the adhan of his own ego. The moment that we turn deaf to our own praise, now we've left home. It's beautiful. Because home is where the ego is. Home is where narcissism is. Home is where the ana is. Home is where the me-centric is. And we live in a very me-centric world today. The whole talk about the me generation. It's not just my beautiful youth out there. All of us now have been affected by this me-centric generation. So the moment that you spiritually leave the home, where now the ana is no longer important, now you have your suitcase, now you're traveling, now you are a true musafir towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you worship Allah in that journey, then there's talks of mi'raj. But like I said in the discussion on perfection, sometimes that very worship that should lead us to Allah leads us to shaitan when it becomes for somebody else. In order for all of you and myself to understand the power of being distinct Islamically in this day and age, and that means not just clothing, that means our habits, that means that I will not do this, I won't drink this even though everyone's doing it, I won't smoke this, everyone's doing it, I won't watch this, it's every hashtag out there. We have to be okay with the fact that if somebody asks me about, let's say, I don't know, the season recap of this show, you can say with confidence, I don't watch that, I'm sorry. Knowing full well, they might look and say, oh, okay, all right. I don't go here. I don't listen to this. I don't wear this. I don't quite believe in this. We have to now get that vocabulary inside of us. And that will make us absolutely distinct. And you're bound to get a moment where the person in front of you rejects you, either through a stare, or they awkwardly stare at you, or they awkwardly walk away, or they become awkward themselves. Like if somebody comes out and begins to shake your hand, and you put your hand in your chest, for 3.2 seconds, oh, awkward. And the person in front now, sometimes they make it even more awkward. They stumble, they fumble, their pen drops, it's okay, relax, calm down, it's okay. Just say hello, that's it, it's okay. Okay, that's it. And the whole interview, the whole talk is, can't look at you, look down, right? So we have to be okay with that. We have to be okay with that. Because it can't be the fact that everything that is norm in society is accepted by the human being. That can't happen. I'm sorry. Because right now, those things that are normal sometimes in any society, and no longer I'm talking about East and West. I'm not that speaker that sits there and bashes this West and bashes that West. I think a global movement now towards a me-centric life is, like I said, global. I went to India a couple of years back now, just before the pandemic. Actually, I arrived a month before the pandemic hit, and I went there for a good 2 to 3 weeks, and I felt like I was talking to youth of Toronto and Brampton. Those days are over now. It's one village. It's one global village. I'm not talking about a society, a community, a side of the world. I'm saying in general now. It can't be that what is norm today has to be the gospel. Remember, one of the most beautiful sunnats and sirats of the imams was that no matter how the person in front of them were, they never were a reflection of the person in front of them. Follow the point very carefully. Instead, they had their own reflection that they would reflect on others. So even if somebody is spewing fire at them, they would not spew even hotter flames at them. If somebody was, beautiful and akhlaq, they would show their beauty and akhlaq. If somebody was ignorant, they would show their ignorance. No, never, not at all. In fact, sometimes it's the complete opposite. They're coming at the imams with fire, and the imams will put out their fire with their water. They're coming at them with the extreme jahalat, extreme ignorance, and they are now reflecting back ilm and taqwa and piety. We sometimes, people like me, I wait for the person's akhlaq and I show them what they show me. Right? Oh, you want to see jahalat? Oh, I can be jahil. Oh, yeah. You want to see anger? Oh. Right? To the point where sometimes, even when somebody talks low, we also talk low with them. It's so amazing to see sometimes. What happened to your voice? Well, they're talking low, I'm talking low. There has to be a sense where we have our own morals and values and ethics, and Islam is a complete and absolute system. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfects a system, Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atamamtu alaykum ni'mati, I've perfected this religion for you, there's nothing left unturned. It's not like me trying to perfect something, there's bound to be holes. When God says, I've perfected this religion, everything is there. Every aspect, every ounce, every value, every principle, every ethic is there. There's nothing that, if only Islam talked about this, Islam talks about everything. Somebody asked Imam Ali that, kash, if this was in the Quran, he says, even your kash is inside the Quran. It's a matter of you, extracting it. Sometimes there's verses, I tell you, I read them, I think that they've been revealed for us now, today in 2021. That's the eternal nature of the miracle nature of the Quran. So a look inwards. We have to ask ourselves now, am I traveling towards God? Have I left the home of the self? Have I left the home of the ego? Have I broke the chains of the anaparasti inside of me? It's amazing. Surah Zumar, verse number 29, talks about the idea of multiple gods. I talked about that before. And the beautiful part is that God simply presents two options. Multiple masters, one master. If I said, sorry, God, I have a question for you. There's a third option. What's that third option? No master. None, one, multiple. That should be the example. Right? Maybe you forgot one God. Maybe the ayat, na'udhu billah, is incomplete. He says, no, it's not incomplete. The fact that he doesn't include a third option of no master means that it's not even possible. The thing that masters you is your God. Khalas, period. Understand, my youth. The thing that masters you is your God. And because you have free will, I have free will, I can choose my master. It's up to you. So some will say, no, absolutely not. You know what? Nobody controls me. Sayyidina said, I do what I want. I eat what I want. I go where I want. I am the master of my own domain. And we think that that's an announcement that I am masterless, when the reality is that you have mastered yourself. The mother of all idols, Rumi says, is the self. The mother of all idols is the self. So either you're mastered by yourself, like the Fir'auns, or others, or multiple, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyways, the idea is that you are going through a journey, and that journey has to reflect the fact that you're leaving home. Now, when you turn inwards, you discover these innate realities, like the need to be distinct. Why not be distinct on the path that will benefit you? I made one statement in 2018 in my Ashra at JCC. The same statement I made 2 nights ago at Al-Mahdi, I'll make it here again. It fits if you don't mind. Let's talk about masters, right? So we have the freedom to choose, correct? Allah gave us free will. The beauty of Allah is such that He's so confident that He goes, you know what, if you want to reject me, go ahead. You want to walk away from me? Go ahead. You have that free will. Tell me which other authority figure allows you that type of freedom. Ask the people of Egypt, if one Egyptian walked away from Fir'aun, turned his back on Fir'aun, what would happen to him? Ask the Iraqis of the 80s, they turned their back on Saddam, what would happen? It's not normal for an authority figure to say, look, I give you free will to walk away from me. But God says, go ahead. Go ahead, walk away from me, reject me. Eventually now, as Imam Sadiq says to one of his atheist students, that there comes a moment in the middle of the ocean on the boat when all is lost, a major storm hitting, and you have all lost all hope in anyone coming. There's this one glimmer of hope that somebody might save me. That glimmer of hope is God. Ya Ali. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So God says, go ahead, you can reject me, turn your back towards me, walk away from me, no problem. There'll be a moment where that fitri diamond of worship will be once again revealed, and you'll turn your way back to me. And when you call upon me after years and years, ujibu da'wati da'i idha da'an. I'll answer your call whenever you call me. That's God, that's His beauty. So now what's that statement? The statement is a very beautiful one, not mine, never is mine. The idea that in a master-slave relationship, the common equation is the slave works, the master benefits. The slave works, the master benefits. If the slave calls in sick, the master now is at loss. If the slave gets lazy, the master is at loss. If the slave doesn't work, the master is at loss. But when we enslave ourselves to God, the equation is not that anymore. The equation is actually something else. The equation is the more the slave works, the higher the slave goes. It's not like the master is depending on the slave. The master's level is not contingent on the slave's work. Some people like me think, Imam Qadim alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala. He says the highest level of ujb, the highest level of narcissism, ujb, self-conceit, this ego, highest level, is that there are those who actually believe that their worship is doing a favor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now subconsciously, we think, okay, God, here's your namaz, here's your fast, here's your hajj, here's your khums. And that doesn't come about sometimes until a tragedy hits. And then when a tragedy hits, sometimes these words of kufr and shirk come out of our mouth, albeit emotional. We end up saying statements like, God, I did this for you. I did that for you. I worshipped you. I prayed to you. I was this volunteer and that volunteer, and you pay me back by taking my husband away, my wife away, my mother away. So if there is a diamond inside of you, a need inside of you, an innate disposition inside of you that's screaming that I want to be distinct, I want to be distinct, I want to be distinct, why not be distinct on that path that the more you show your distinctness, the higher you go? Now, is there a connection between my external world and my internal distinctness? Yes, there is. Let's examine that quickly. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, even Western philosophy has this great discussion on distinctness. And I asked my youth out there, if you want to kind of, look up this topic, then search it up. There is some great discussions on the need to be distinct. Why does every human being need to be distinct? So again, I'll say it again. It's not that we don't want to be distinct. We want to direct it towards God. Because that's going to be for my benefit. Now, Western philosophy, Western psychology says that this distinctness now is sometimes triggered. It has stimuli. And the stimuli is that it triggers our perception, how we perceive ourselves. Right? How we perceive ourselves is ultimately how we are distinct. So perception and distinction go hand in hand. What is that connector between how I perceive myself and whether or not I'm distinct? Sometimes they say it's your physical appearance. I tell you guys, there is such wisdom behind a lot of the ahkam rulings inside the deen. A lot of the ahkam rulings. I talked about certainty and doubt. All of these talks now are coming together. Nights ago, I talked about the fact that sometimes we don't understand a certain law of God, a law in Islam, and especially my young guys, I love you, but there's an ego about you guys sometimes that, look, convince me, then I'll follow that law. Right? I talked about the fact that sometimes my elders now, they got to a certain level of yaqeen through the path of amal. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm going to keep doing it. There are many of my youth want to reach yaqeen through the path of ilm and knowledge. So Asad Bhai, please convince me why this, why that, why this, why did God make this halal and this haram and that makruh? Why 124,000 prophets? Why not 15 imams? Because if there were 15 imams, you would ask, why are there 15 imams? And the answer is that sometimes submission dictates to us that I may not know why I'm doing it. It's enough that he tells me. In the same khutbah I just quoted of Imam Ali Nahj al-Balagha, the very opening paragraph, it is a beautiful khutbah. Opening paragraph, he tells Hamad, know that whatever comes down from God, wajib, makruh, haram, mustahab, all that is not for him. Has nothing to do with him. If I decide, God forbid, to lead the deen tomorrow, doesn't affect his kingdom. If I decide to be Mr. Muttaqi, doesn't affect his kingdom. He's azal, he's abad. He's always been, he'll always be there. We are all perishing. Kullu man alayha fan, where everything is perishing. Everything is on that road towards, this fani road. Anyways. So it's enough to know that, look, I have doubt about this ruling, but I have certainty about God. Right? Remember that? So I leave the doubt, I go with what's certain. Same idea now, the same idea. Why do I have to look a certain way, eat a certain food, listen to certain things, look at certain things, and not look at certain things? All these physical now what? Physical triggers that will what? Help me perceive myself. When I perceive myself, I begin to understand my distinctness. You know yourself, and that's why you can see yourself as being distinct. And sometimes an element of that is how you look physically. The food in your stomach, the things in your ears. Imam Hussein is sitting there on the day of Ashura saying, you are doing to me what you're doing to me because there's haram in your stomach. So yes, there is a physical element that affects you quite a bit. There are physical stimuli that connects me with my perception, and that, of course, triggers my distinction. So now when a sister of 9, 10, 11 years old begins to wear hijab, and she looks at a mirror now, and that stimuli begins to say, oh, you're perceiving yourself as a muhajjaba sister, then that distinctness now begins to take the form of a muhajjaba sister. Provided that you begin to now tackle those barriers I talked about. Inferiority, doubt, rejection. They have to be, and that's an ongoing process. So to my mothers and my fathers out there who are trying to now create this identity inside their kids, please, it's a parallel process. Create the identity at home, at the same time tackle the 3 barriers I talked about. Inferior, doubt, and rejection. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now my last point in the Masaib tonight is Ali Akbar, and there's lots of Masaib to recite. This is one of the most crucial moments on the day of Ashura for Hussein ibn Ali. It's a devastating Masaib. And these are nights to cry. You're dressed to cry, your hearts want to cry. This entire environment is there for us to grieve. Let's grieve. Before that, one point. Surah Baqarah talks about 3 groups of people. إن الذين آمنوا والذين هاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله أولئك يرجون رحمة الله والله غفور رحيم. 3 groups of people. Ahl Iman, Ahl Hijrat, Ahl Jihad. The Mu'min, the Muhajir, the Mujahid. The believer, the migrator, the struggler. These 3 individuals, if they do what they do, if they believe and migrate and struggle, fi sabilillah, on the path towards Allah, who are they? Ulaika yarjuna rahmatullah. They're individuals who can expect or they have hope of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all crave that. Allah, of course, is Ghafoor and Rahim. He's forgiving and He is merciful. Now, Iman and Jihad makes sense to me. Believing makes sense to me. Struggling on the path of Allah makes sense to me. Who is this muhajir Allah talks about? This migrator? Now, right away, I'll think to myself, a physical migration from Tanzania over to Brampton, from Karachi to Brampton, let's say, from Bombay, mashallah, to Toronto. And no doubt, one element of migration is a physical one. But one element is a spiritual one as well. From one level of taqwa to another level of taqwa. Example in history is the Prophet's migration. From Mecca to Medina. Last part, then Masai. You've been very patient with me. Mecca to Medina. Imam Ali is inside of his bed. The Prophet now begins to physically move towards Medina. And we count that nights as one migration. But in reality, it was 2 migrations. One's a physical one of the Holy Prophets. One's a spiritual one of Imam Ali. If the Prophet moved physically from Mecca to Medina, when it comes to the ridayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Imam Ali moved from one level to a higher level. So migration is both physical and both spiritual. We go from a mawjudi level to a matlubi level, meaning what? We go from a bare minimum existence to a higher existence. You know, my first generation parents in the audience who came in the 70s and 60s, back then, all you could concern yourself with was feed my kids, give them shelter. If you could somehow manage to do that, keep up with the rent and the payments, that's great. That was your job, and you did that beautifully. In the process, you put up these 4 walls. And if you follow Maslow's hierarchy, there comes a moment where there has to be some self-actualization. But we, as this generation, I believe now, we're past that first or second level. I don't think we're worried about where my next meal might come from, not in this part of the world. If this pandemic showed anything, it showed us that we are quite privileged. Our country shut down multiple times, right? Our government offered us money every single month. On top of that, my pantry, my freezer, my fridge is full. If not, there is a neighbor down the road that's sending me food. We're very privileged. So this first level of Maslow's hierarchy of food, shelter, and water is not us in this generation. We can begin to climb up the triangle and get to that peak of self-actualization. That is that matlubi level, where Allah now says, I see in this insan my Khalifa. To reach that level of the Khalifa of Allah is self-actualization, nothing else. We have to embrace that. Stop now looking at the bottom portion of the triangle. Let's move towards that peak now. Because now you know where your shelter is. You know where your next meal is. You have a strong base of support. You have a big family here or there. All those things are there where the parents weren't there. In the 70s, my father, marhum, worked 2 jobs, 3 jobs, overnight, security, flea market stall, delivered mail. He did anything he could just to put clothes on my back. If I talk to him about Baba, let's try to self-actualize. Self-actualize. I'm trying to pay the mortgage here. I'm trying to make sure you have a meal, and you're a big boy, you need more than 1 meal. It's not easy. Stop eating and I can stop working. But that's not like that with us. So there has to be a little bit more that we require from ourselves. Forget, this is an internal conversation. From ourselves. And that is the idea that now I need to actualize myself by looking at the process of distinction. I'll say it again. If you want to be somebody who is on the journey towards Allah, you have to look the part. It's all within you, my young people, all within you. My brothers and my sisters who are young, whether you are 9 years old, 19 years old, 29 years old, all of those gems and jewels and johars and rubies are all within you. And one thing Karbala told us time and time again is that the potential of young individuals is very high, higher than sometimes they believe. And when you see that pride of yours as a father coming to you, asking you, Ke Baba, give me ijazat. Baba, give me permission. This is not Habib. This is not Muslim. This is not Zuhair. This is Ali Akbar. This is that individual that khulqan and khalqan was a shabi of Rasulullah. His raftar, his guftar, his surat, his sirat, the way he acted, the way he looked, everything about him was all a reminder of the Holy Prophet. There will be a lineup outside Hussein's house when Ali Akbar was young in Medina, all to simply catch a glimpse of Ali Akbar. We miss our Rasul, we miss our Habib, we miss our Holy Prophet. Now that shining personality, that Shabi of Rasulullah is standing in front of a 57-year-old father saying, Baba, it's now time for me to go. My father's in the audience, you have Javan sons. They're a source of your pride. This is my fakhr. This is my Qadi Javan. This is my mehnat. This is my zahmat. I poured my heart, I poured my blood into this Javan son of mine. Imagine now watching that Javan son enter the Maidan of Karbala, knowing full well the next time you see him, he's on the verge of death. That's not easy. My salams to you, Hussein ibn Ali. The one shahadat that almost killed the man was Ali Akbar's. Ali Akbar's. Baba, give me ijazat. Right away, Hussein gives Ali Akbar ijazat. Never wants anyone to say, oh, you sent this person and that person, but for your own son you hesitated. No, without hesitation, go. In fact, Hussein went above and beyond. He's the one that got Ali Akbar ready for battle. Baba, Baba, what are you doing? No, my son, I want to put the armor on. I want to put the helmet on. I want to give you your shield. I want to give you your sword. I want to mount you on the horse. Hussein, a 57-year-old Buddha Bap, mounting his Javan on the horse. Now he says, you go inside the Maidan of Karbala. But every so often, if you can, just turn your face towards me so I could see you as you enter the Maidan of Karbala. Ali Akbar mounts the horse now, enters the Maidan of Karbala. Some reports say he could feel that there was somebody behind him. Somebody behind him. He stops, looks behind him. His 57-year-old father stumbling behind the Zuljana. He gets off the horse, picks up his father. They say Hussein cried for a very long time. Hussein cried for a very long time. Out loud, Shadid, the book say. Baba, you gave me ijazat. Baba, you gave me permission. What is all this? Ali Akbar. If you were only sahib olad, if only you had a son like I have in you, you would know how hard this moment is. Ali Akbar rides inside the Maidan of Karbala. Ana Ali ibn al-Husayn ibn Ali. If you don't know me, I'm the son of Hussein. I'm the grandson of Hadar Karrar. The blood of Ali runs through my veins. Ali Akbar now begins to fight, kills off multiple individuals, kills and kills. When there comes a moment now where Umar ibn Saad says, surround the young boy, then now there's a bunch of men now surrounding Ali Akbar. Someone throws stones at Ali Akbar. Someone throw anything they had Ali Akbar. Arrows came towards Ali Akbar. One hit him over and over again. He would take it out and fight, take it out and fight, until there came a moment now where everyone begins to close in on Ali Akbar, still on the horse. Then one mal'oon comes from behind and now strikes his chest with a spear. Ali Akbar falls from the horse. Alayka minni salam, ya abata. Oh Baba, accept my salams. Al Hussein from the khayma now hears the cry of Ali Akbar, says, Abbas, you stay here. He's my Ali Akbar. He's my Ali Akbar. I'm gonna go myself. Hussein now rides into the Maidan of Karbala. He waits a little bit, gets off the horse, begins to walk ever so slowly towards Ali Akbar. The khak of Karbala is in the air. The horses are everywhere. Aina Ali? Aina Ali? Where are you, Ali Akbar? Where are you, Ali Akbar? Baba! Ilayya, I'm here. Hussein arrives at the body of Ali Akbar, lying on the plains of Karbala, blood pouring from his chest. May Allah never show any father this moment. Hussein now attempts to take the spear out of his chest, but every single time, as one alim said, the body would shake up and down. At that moment, my Muslim Mola grabbed the spear, turned towards Najaf, some say, hey Baba, you've ripped the door of Khaybar, you ripped the door of Khaybar, but come to Karbala and see me ripping the spear of Ali Akbar's chest. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلبين ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين
يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين कहते थे जवान लाश पे शबीर ये रोकर, कहते थे जवान लाश पे शबीर ये रोकर, हाय हाय अली अकबर, हाय हाय अली अकबर, क्या हाल किया हाय सितमगारों ने तेरा, ये हाल तेरा देख के दिल फटता है मेरा, कैसे थे सितमगर, हाय हाय اکبر. کہتے تھے جوان لاش پہ شبیر یہ رو کر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. سینے پہ تیرے ہائے بڑا ظلم ہوا ہے، برچھی ہے لگی تجھ کو میرا قلب چھدا ہے، روتے رہے کہہ کر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. کہتے تھے جوان لاش پہ شبیر یہ رو کر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. اس طرح سے یا ہوں تیری لاش پہ اکبر، ایک ہاتھ کلیجے پہ تو ایک ہاتھ کمر پر، 9 ہاتھ لبوں پر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. کہتے تھے جوان لاش پہ شبیر یہ رو کر، ہائے اکبر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. برچھی ہے لگی تجھ کو نہ سن پائے گی زینب، دیکھے گی جو اس حال میں مر جائے گی زینب، مر جائے گی مادر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. کہتے تھے جوان لاش پہ شبیر یہ رو کر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. خیمے میں تمہیں لے کے نہ جا پاؤں گا بیٹا، کچھ دکھتا نہیں راہ میں گر جاؤں گا بیٹا، اٹھ جاؤ چلو گھر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. خیمے میں تمہیں لے کے نہ جا پاؤں گا بیٹا، کچھ دکھتا نہیں راہ میں گر جاؤں گا بیٹا، اٹھ جاؤ چلو گھر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. کہتے تھے جوان لاش پہ شبیر یہ رو کر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. پھٹتا ہے میرا قلب میرا حال تو دیکھو، یوں سامنے بابا کے نہ تم ایڑیاں رگڑو، مر جاؤں گا دلبر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. کہتے تھے جوان لاش پہ شبیر یہ رو کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر خط فاطمہ صغریٰ کا یہ آیا ہے وطن سے بھیا کہو کس بات پہ روٹھے ہو بہن سے بے چین ہے خواہر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر کہتے تھے جوان لاش پہ شبیر یہ رو کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ذیشان چلے لاش اکبر جو اٹھا کر غازی یہ صدا دیتے رہے راہ میں سرور ہائے زینب مضطر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر کہتے تھے جوان لاش پہ شبیر یہ رو کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر
کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اکبر اذان سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اکبر اذان سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اکبر اذان سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اکبر ہو کر نثار دین پر ہو کر نثار دین پر دین نبی بچاؤ اکبر اکبر اذان سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اکبر اذان سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر آؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر خیموں میں کر رہی ہے میری انتظار بہنیں سن لے نبی کا لہجہ میری سوگوار بہنیں خیموں میں کر رہی ہے میری انتظار بہنیں سن لے نبی کا لہجہ میری سوگوار بہنیں دستار یہ نانا کی دستار یہ نانا کی ذرا پہن کر دکھاؤ اکبر اکبر اذاں سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اذاں سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اکبر اذاں سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اکبر تیری آس پر میں بیٹھا پردیس میں تھی آئی سر پیٹ کے خیموں میں کہتی ہے زہرا جائی تیری آس پر میں بیٹھا پردیس میں تھی آئی سر پیٹ کے خیموں میں کہتی ہے زہرا جائی تجھ بن جیوں گی کیسے تجھ بن جیوں گی کیسے اتنا ذرا بتاؤ اکبر اکبر اذاں سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اکبر اذاں سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اذاں سناؤ خورشید نوح خانوں کرتے یہی دعا ہے بھائیوں سے ملے بہنیں مدت سے جو جدا ہے خورشید نوح خانوں کرتے یہی دعا ہے بھائیوں سے ملے بہنیں مدت سے جو جدا ہے اکبر کا واسطہ ہے اکبر کا واسطہ ہے میرے امام آؤ اکبر اکبر اذاں سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اکبر اذاں سناؤ ہو کر نثار دین پر ہو کر نثار دین پر دین نبی بچاؤ اکبر اکبر اذاں سناؤ کہتی ہے تجھ سے اکبر زہرا کی بیٹیاں یہ اکبر اکبر اذاں سناؤ
سورة المباركة الفاتحة
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أخيك العباس وأختيك زينب وأم كلثوم وبنتك سكينة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم أئمة الهدى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا قائم يا آل محمد يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، عجل الله فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.